First Contact Protocol. The research vessel Luminous Inquiry drifted silently at the edge of Everin space, its crystalline hull reflecting the distant starlight. Chief Science Officer Lyra stood at the main observation deck, her silvery skin shimmering under the soft blue light of the ship's interior. Her four-fingered hands moved gracefully over the translucent control panel, adjusting the long-range sensors. Another quiet cycle, she said to herself, her melodic voice echoing in the nearly empty chamber. The Everins had explored this sector for generations, cataloging stellar phenomena and searching for signs of intelligent life. In 300 years of space exploration, they had encountered only 6 other sentient species, all peaceful and willing to engage in cultural and scientific exchange. The Everin Collective prided itself on diplomacy and understanding. The calm of the observation deck was shattered by a sudden alert, a gentle chime accompanied by pulsing azure light on Lyra's console. She straightened her slender frame, large iridescent eyes widening as she checked the readings. "Commander Vex," she called through the ship's communication system. "We have an unidentified vessel approaching from Sector 7. Commander Vex arrived moments later, his broader build marking him as from the southern continent of their homeworld. Unlike Lyra's academic posture, Vex carried himself with the confidence of someone trained to protect, a rare specialization among the typically peaceful Everins. "Show me," he instructed, moving to stand beside Lyra. The main display illuminated with an image that caused both Everins to step back involuntarily. The approaching ship was unlike anything in their records, angular and bulky with none of the organic curves that characterized vessels built by known spacefaring species. Multiple protrusions dotted its hull, which Lyra quickly identified as weapon systems. "It's heavily armed," Vex noted, his voice betraying concern. "Yes, Commander, but our scans indicate the technology is less advanced than ours," Lyra replied, studying the readouts. Vex's eyes narrowed. "Less advanced doesn't mean less dangerous. Run a complete analysis." Lyra nodded and initiated a comprehensive scan sequence. The Everin Collective had established careful protocols for first contact scenarios. Study first, understand the species' capabilities and likely intentions, then decide whether to initiate communication. The scan began returning data, and Lyra frowned at the readings. "That's peculiar," she murmured. "What is it?" Vex asked, stepping closer. "The ship's design. It doesn't match any known engineering philosophy in our database. And there's something unusual about their power distribution." The vessel identified itself in its own markings as UES Dauntless. As more data streamed in, Lyra called over several other science officers to verify her findings. Soon, the observation deck hummed with confused discussions. "Commander," Lyra said, her voice strained, "you need to see these results." Vex studied the detailed scan now filling the screens, his expression hardening as he processed what he was seeing. "Run the scan again." Lyra did as ordered, but the results returned unchanged. The Dauntless was designed in a way that defied Everin logic. Its systems featured multiple redundancies, not just one backup, which would be reasonable, but 3, 4, sometimes more for critical systems. "What kind of species builds like this?" asked one of the junior officers. "One that expects failure," Vex replied grimly. "One that prepares for catastrophe." Further scans revealed more disturbing details. The ship's outer hull was reinforced beyond what seemed necessary for normal space travel. Internal compartments could be sealed off in sections, allowing the vessel to remain functional even if significant portions were damaged or exposed to vacuum. "The life forms aboard," Lyra reported, "appear to be bictal, oxygen-breathing. Similar physiologically to the Centauri, but their biological readings show remarkable differences. The scans revealed creatures with astounding resilience, bodies containing systems that could respond rapidly to injury, clotting mechanisms to quickly stop blood loss, and an immune system designed to fight off a wide range of pathogens. But what truly disturbed the Everin scanning team was the ship's weapon systems. Unlike Everin defensive technologies, which were designed primarily to disable rather than destroy, These weapons showed no such restraint. They were created with one purpose: to inflict maximum damage. Most concerning of all, many of these weapon systems had independent power supplies separate from the main reactor. They could still function even if the rest of the ship was crippled. They designed this vessel to keep fighting even when critically damaged, Vex said, his voice barely above a whisper. The concept was alien to the Everans, who valued life above all else. Their own ships had excellent defensive capabilities, but limited offensive weapons. When faced with certain defeat, Everan protocol was to retreat or negotiate to preserve lives. The idea of continuing to fight when all hope was lost seemed not just foolish but barbaric. As the scan continued, they intercepted internal communications from the ship. The universal translator struggled initially but soon began to make sense of the language. "This is Captain Reeves to engineering. How are those shield modifications coming along?" "Almost there, Captain. Another hour and we'll have boosted capacity by 35%. Good work. And the new sensor array?" "Tested and online, ma'am. Detection range improved by 40%. The Everans listened in silence. These humans were improving their defensive and detection systems even as they traveled through space. They were preparing for something. A final detailed scan of the ship's database revealed fragments of human history, images of wars, conflicts spanning centuries, technologies developed for the purpose of killing, a species that had fought itself countless times before reaching the stars. Lyra's hands trembled as she finished compiling the report, her iridescent eyes wide with a mix of fear and disbelief. "Commander," she said, her voice barely steady, "I believe we've encountered a species of warriors." Vex stood silently, watching the human ship on the main screen. It continued on its course, approaching Everan space, unaware it was being observed. Or perhaps, he thought with a chill, they were aware and simply didn't care. "Alert the Collective Council," Vex ordered finally. "Tell them we've made first contact with a new species and need guidance on how to proceed." As Lyra hurried to relay the message, Vex remained fixated on the image of the Dauntless. What kind of evolutionary path created beings that built such ships? What kind of history shaped a species to always prepare for the worst? And most importantly, what would these humans do when they discovered they weren't alone in the universe? For the first time in his career, Commander Vex felt fear, not just for himself or his crew, but for the entire Everan collective. The humans were coming, and they came prepared for war. The collective council chamber aboard the Luminous Inquiry fell silent as Lyra finished presenting her initial findings. 7 council members sat around the curved table, their iridescent eyes reflecting concern. The room's gentle illumination cast soft shadows across their silvery faces. "This data cannot be accurate," said Elder Neron, the most senior council member. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke. "No species would build ships designed to continue fighting after sustaining catastrophic damage." "I verified the scans personally," Lyra replied firmly. "The data is accurate." The main display showed detailed images of the human warship, the UES Dauntless. Commander Vex stood beside Lyra, his posture tense, ready to provide tactical assessments. "With your permission," Lyra said, "I will highlight the most concerning anomalies we discovered." Elder Telia, head of the council, nodded. "Proceed, Chief Science Officer." Lyra touched the control panel, and the display zoomed in on the ship's power systems. "First, observe their power grid. Unlike our vessels, which use a primary reactor with one backup, the human ship has its main reactor here." She pointed to the center of the ship, but also has 3 smaller reactors positioned throughout the vessel. "Perhaps they simply have higher energy requirements," suggested another council member. "That was our initial assumption," Lyra continued, "but upon further analysis, we discovered each reactor is capable of independently powering essential systems. If the main reactor fails, the ship doesn't just switch to emergency power. It can continue almost all functions using these backup systems." She changed the display to show the ship's life support systems. Their air recycling system has 4 separate units, each able to support the entire crew. Their water purification system is similarly redundant. This is basic safety, Elder Neron argued. All ships have backup life support. Yes, Vex interjected, but our backups are designed to keep the crew alive until they can reach safety or be rescued. These systems are designed to keep the ship operational for extended periods, even after taking significant damage. Lyra nodded and changed the display again. Now observe their hull design. The image showed cross-sections of the ship's outer shell. Unlike the smooth, continuous hulls of Everin vessels, the human ship's hull was divided into multiple compartments, each with its own reinforced walls. Their hull is segmented, Lyra explained. If one section is breached, automatic doors seal off the damaged area. The ship can lose up to 60% of its internal volume to vacuum and still function. Murmurs of disbelief filled the council chamber. But the most disturbing elements, Lyra continued, switching the display to the ship's weapon systems, are these. The council stared at the array of weapons mounted on the human vessel. Missile launchers, energy projectors, and what appeared to be kinetic weapons lined the hull. Each weapon system has dedicated power supplies separate from the main grid. They can continue firing even if the ship loses main power. Some weapons can even be operated manually if electronic systems fail. Manually? Elder Talia asked, her voice barely audible. You mean they would send crew members to physically operate weapons during combat? Yes, Elder, Lyra confirmed. And there's more. We detected training protocols in their computer systems. The humans regularly practice something called damage control drills. They simulate severe damage to the ship and train to fight while parts of their vessel are exposed to vacuum or on fire. The council chamber was utterly silent now. The concept was almost incomprehensible to the Everins, whose entire philosophy centered around preservation of life. Their own defensive training focused on preventing conflict or retreating when necessary to save lives. There's something else, Vex said grimly. Show them the biological scans. Lyra. Unexpected alliance. The medical analysis lab hummed with tension as Lyra displayed the results of their biological scans. The room's soft illumination highlighted the concern on the faces of the Everin council members. These humans are remarkable. Lyra began, her voice carrying a mix of scientific fascination and unease. Their biology suggests a species that evolved under conditions we can barely imagine. She touched the screen, highlighting the human skeletal system. First, observe their bones. They're composed of living tissue that continuously rebuilds itself when damaged. Their fractures heal completely over time. Many species have regenerative capabilities, council member Zoran pointed out. Yes, but look at this, Lyra continued, zooming in on a cellular image. Their blood contains specialized cells that rush to wounds, forming clots to stop bleeding almost instantly. They have an immune system that adapts to new threats, remembering pathogens it has encountered before. She switched to another image showing the human heart. Their cardiovascular system is designed for both endurance and sudden bursts of extreme activity. They can maintain slow, steady exertion for days or switch to intense output in seconds. A predator adaptation, Vex noted grimly. Yes, but also prey, Lyra replied, surprising them all. These biological systems suggest a species that evolved as both hunter and hunted. They can chase prey to exhaustion, but they can also flee from threats over long distances. Elder Telia frowned, trying to understand. How can a species evolve as both? I don't know, Lyra admitted. It's contradictory, but there's more. She brought up an image of the human digestive system. They can consume almost anything. Their digestive tract processes a wide variety of foods, both plant and animal. They can survive on diverse diets, adapting to whatever nutrition is available. A survival advantage, Elder Neron observed. Exactly, Lyra confirmed. And look at this. She displayed thermal images of human bodies. They regulate body temperature internally. They can survive in freezing environments by generating heat and in hot environments by cooling themselves through a process called sweating. Commander Vex shook his head in amazement. So they can live almost anywhere. Within limits. Yes, far wider limits than most species we've encountered. Lyra confirmed. But perhaps most disturbing is this. She pulled up images of the human nervous system and brain. Their pain responses. She hesitated, searching for the right words. Adaptive. They can suppress pain temporarily to continue functioning during injury. Their bodies produce chemicals that allow them to ignore damage that would incapacitate other species. By the luminous path, whispered Elder Talia. What could have shaped such evolution? Before anyone could respond, an alert sounded throughout the ship. The main screen switched to show a massive energy disturbance forming between the luminous inquiry and the human vessel. Spatial anomaly detected, announced the ship's automated system. Gravitational distortion increasing. Warning, ship integrity at risk. Commander Vex moved quickly to the communications panel. All personnel to emergency stations. Prepare for. His order was cut short as the ship lurched violently. The lights flickered, and several systems went offline. Main power compromised, reported a technician. Stabilizers failing. Lyra studied the readings from the anomaly. Her scientific mind racing despite the danger. It's some kind of subspace rift. I've never seen anything like it. The energy signature is completely unknown. Can we escape it? Elder Talia asked, clutching the edge of her seat as the ship shuddered again. Our engines aren't responding correctly, Vex replied. The anomaly is disrupting our propulsion systems. Suddenly, the communication system activated with an unfamiliar voice. Unidentified vessel, this is Captain Reeves of the UES Dauntless. We detect you're caught in the same quantum fissure as we are. Do you require assistance? The council chamber fell silent, all eyes turning to Elder Talia. First contact was happening, but not as they had planned. After a moment's hesitation, Talia nodded to Vex. He opened the channel. UES Dauntless, this is Commander Vex of the Everin research vessel Luminous Inquiry. We are experiencing critical systems failure due to the anomaly. Commander Vex, Captain Reeves responded, her voice calm despite the circumstances. We've encountered similar phenomena before. We're sending you data on how to modify your shields to withstand the gravitational shearing. Our scans show your ship is technologically advanced, but you'll need to adapt quickly. Lyra was already analyzing the incoming data stream. They're right, she said with surprise. These modifications could work. They're reconfiguring their own shields to create a stability field between our vessels. Why would they help us? Elder Neron asked suspiciously. They don't know us. Because they can, Vex replied simply. Implement the modifications, Lyra. As the Everin engineers worked frantically to adapt their systems according to the human specifications, the anomaly grew more violent. The space between the two ships distorted visibly, stars appearing to bend and stretch. Shields failing, reported a technician. Hull breach on lower deck 3. Seal it off, Vex ordered. Evacuate that section. Commander, Lyra called out. The humans are suggesting we move our ship closer to theirs. They believe they can extend their modified shield bubble to protect us both. Elder Talia exchanged glances with the other council members. The decision to trust these unknown, seemingly war-ready humans was not an easy one. We have little choice, she finally said. Proceed, Commander. With delicate maneuvering, the Luminous Inquiry edged closer to the Dauntless. As they approached, they could see the human ship more clearly, battle-scared and utilitarian, yet somehow magnificent in its rugged functionality. Extending shield now, came Captain Reeves' voice. Hold position at 500 meters. A visible energy field expanded from the Dauntless, reaching out to envelop the Everin vessel. Almost immediately, the violent shaking subsided. It's working, Lyra said in amazement. Their shield configuration is neutralizing the gravitational distortions. They're requesting to send a team aboard to help repair our critical systems, Vex announced, surprise evident in his voice. Elder Talia hesitated only briefly. Allow it. 20 minutes later, a human shuttle docked with the luminous inquiry. 6 humans in functional uniforms emerged, carrying equipment cases. Their appearance shocked the watching Everans, so similar in basic form yet so different, with their opaque skin in various shades of brown and pink, hair on their heads, and small, focused eyes. The leader stepped forward, removing her helmet. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, Engineering and Disaster Response, she said, then gestured to her team. We've brought portable power generators and hull sealant compatible with your ship's composition. The humans moved with practiced efficiency, splitting into teams and working alongside the cautious Everan engineers. They seemed completely unfazed by the emergency, as if crisis response was something they did every day. Lyra observed them closely, her scientific curiosity overcoming her initial fear. She approached Lieutenant Commander Chen, who was recalibrating an Everan power conduit. "You've done this before," Lyra said. It wasn't a question. Chen nodded without looking up from her work. Emergency response is standard training for all Dauntless personnel. Everyone from the captain to the medical staff knows basic repair protocols. But why? Lyra asked. Why prepare so extensively for disaster? Chen paused, finally looking up at Lyra. Because in space, disaster is always one moment away. Doesn't matter if it's combat, cosmic phenomena, or equipment failure. The void is waiting for any mistake. She smiled slightly. Better to have skills you never need than to need skills you don't have. Over the next several hours, the humans worked tirelessly alongside the Everans. What had begun as a fearful first contact transformed into something unexpected. Cooperation and mutual respect. Captain Reeves herself eventually came aboard to meet with Elder Talia and the Council. Her presence was commanding yet not threatening, her manner direct but respectful. "The quantum fissure is stabilizing," she explained, showing them data on a portable device. "But it will be several hours before it's safe to break free. In the meantime, my science team would like to propose an exchange of data about the phenomenon. It seems both our species value scientific discovery." "Yes," Elder Talia agreed, studying the human captain with new understanding. "Though we approached this encounter very differently." Captain Reeves smiled. "I noticed your scanning patterns when you first detected us. Very thorough. Wise to be cautious with unknown vessels." "You knew we were scanning you?" Vex asked, surprised. "Of course. Your technology is impressive, but we've encountered similar scanning methods before." She gestured around at the Everan ship. "Just as I imagine our vessel must have seemed unusual to you. We were concerned by your extensive weapons systems and redundancies," Elder Talia admitted. "They suggested a species prepared for war." Captain Reeves nodded, understanding. "Ah, I see the confusion now. Humanity's path to the stars wasn't easy, Elder Talia. We evolved on a planet with extreme environmental challenges and predators. Later, we faced our own internal conflicts. Those experiences taught us harsh lessons about survival." She continued, her voice thoughtful. "What you see as preparation for war, we see as preparation for survival. Space is dangerous. Radiation, micrometeorites, equipment failures, cosmic anomalies like this one. The void doesn't forgive mistakes or hesitation. Your entire crew is trained for combat," Vex pointed out. For emergency response, Reeves corrected gently. "There's a difference. Yes, we can fight if we must, but those same skills and systems that might seem aggressive to you have just saved both our ships in a crisis that had nothing to do with conflict." As the hours passed, the Everans and humans worked together to study the quantum fissure while repairing the damage to both vessels. Cultural exchange happened naturally alongside the technical collaboration. The humans were fascinated by Everan art and philosophy, while the Everans were amazed by human adaptability and ingenuity. Where an Everan would carefully follow established protocols, a human might improvise a solution using available materials in ways never intended. "I think I understand now," Lyra said to Commander Vex as they watched a human engineer teaching an Everan technician how to repurpose a food synthesizer component to boost a power relay. "What we initially interpreted as aggression is actually adaptability. They don't just prepare for war, they prepare for anything." Vex nodded slowly. "A species shaped by hardship, but not defined by it. Their redundancies and training aren't about continuing to fight. They're about continuing to live." As the quantum fissure finally dissipated and the two ships prepared to part ways, Captain Reeves and Elder Talia formalized the first official contact between humans and Everans. "We would welcome further cultural and scientific exchange," Elder Talia said. "There is much we could learn from each other." "Agreed," Captain Reeves replied. "Though perhaps next time under less dramatic circumstances." As the human delegation returned to their ship, Lyra approached Lieutenant Commander Chen one last time. "When we first scanned your vessel, we were afraid," she admitted. "We thought we'd encountered warriors." Chen smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "In a way, you did. But our greatest battles have been against extinction, not against other beings. The universe doesn't care if we live or die. It's up to us to choose life, again and again, no matter the odds." As the UES Dauntless moved away, its angular form now familiar rather than threatening, Elder Talia stood beside Lyra on the observation deck. "What an interesting species," the Elder mused. "So contradictory, capable of tremendous violence, yet equally capable of compassion and cooperation." "Perhaps that's their greatest strength," Lyra replied. "They prepare for the worst while still hoping for the best. A rational approach to an irrational universe." The Everan High Council would later debate for months about how to proceed with human relations. But for those aboard the luminous Inquiry who had worked alongside them, the conclusion was already clear. What had initially terrified them about humanity, their readiness for disaster, was precisely what made them valuable allies in a dangerous cosmos. From fear had come understanding, and from understanding, the beginning of friendship between two very different species among the stars.